Hello, it's Ashton Lewis.
And I'm Daphne Lynn.
And you are listening to the
NDE World Podcast.
Welcome to the NDE World Podcast. May peace be with you all. I am your host, Ashton Lewis. In the studio with me, my lovely hostess, Miss Daphne Lynn. Hello, Miss Daphne. And how are you today?
Hello, Ashton Lewis. I am doing absolutely wonderful.
All right.
Been enjoying my little morning stargazing, my I am connections that we've been incorporating into our morning routine. I really am enjoying it. And just seeing some amazing spectacles out there. How are you?
Awesome. And yes, I totally agree. The other night, I went out there, I woke up at I forgot what time it was. It was pretty early. I'm like, you know what? Let me just for the heck of it, go out there and check it out. So I was able to see some really cool things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I saw 4 UFOs, 3.
All at the same time, too.
Yeah, 3 of them were. And then one of them, I did get a picture of one. And these are just lights, unexplained something. It's not a regular airplane or whatever. It's some kind of type of something.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing.
I did see 3 airplanes and 4, I don't know what you want to call them, meteorites or falling stars, shooting stars or whatever. You know, those little things that kind of shoots across. Yeah. I don't know what they're called. Meteorites, I guess. You know, they're pretty.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but it's really cool. So.
Yes, I'm enjoying it myself. I really am. I mean, it's just that morning connection.
Yeah.
I mean, I know time doesn't exist. We say mornings and evenings and night times, but I mean,
That's
time is
linear
for us, so we call it that. But it's definitely the ever-present moment of now, and that's what I love about doing it. Is just being out there in the moment, just enjoying life.
Yeah, and it's guys. Just to let you know, it's typically just the cricket crew out hanging out about that time too. It's just, I mean, everything else is pretty much done calmed down except the crickets. They're still
a few frogs here and there.
And then maybe a frog, maybe a dog, and way off in the distance. Or well, let's go ahead and get things rolling here. Before we do, don't forget to go to the website NDE.world for all kind of really amazing, cool things that we've got going on, and we'd love to see you over there. And any questions you guys may have?
Yeah, we're definitely
we're here for you.
We're definitely here to allow those that haven't been able to talk and share their experience. We are here as a community who does not, ridicule or condemn what you have experienced in your life, because so many people don't understand that and do ridicule this and like, oh my gosh, you're a freak, So that is something that will never happen at NDE World Facebook group, because we are here as a community, because we are one. We're here to uplift and share love with each other.
Yes, and many of the actual members in the group are actual NDEers, people who have actually had firsthand experiences, So
yes.
That's the beauty of it all. So again, that website is NDE.world. Again,
NDE.world.
All right, guys, we've got a surprise for you. We've been talking about taking all of this information that we've been going over in the UDO system and start looking into some kind of ways to start putting things into practice, okay? Today we're going to start into the section that we're calling the actual workbook, and I'll tell you why in just a moment.
Yeah, I was going to say we went over the UDO manuscript, how the different practices and steps you can take to start implementing, new ways of living to help you to get to a higher level of consciousness and awareness with things.
Yeah.
So this is the workbook. So
to really start taking all of the stuff that we went over and start really putting it into practice.
Yeah.
Because we've just been kind of brushing over things, really trying to, really start from the basics, let people know what this is all about. And, it does take work. It does take focus. It takes, it is a discipline and a responsibility. but look what you get out of it.
Oh, I know, yeah. And there's so many out there that are already doing these things, already practicing these things. And meditation is a beginning step for reaching the higher levels of consciousness.
Yeah. Really just silencing the mind and really getting grounded and back to that centeredness, you know. And we're going to go over all of that, guys. That's where we're at right now in this process. We know we've been kind of dabbling with a little here, a little there, a little this, a little that, but now we need to go ahead and start really start going to the next level, you know, now that everybody has pretty much a foundation, you know. Just before I tell you, let's do this. Before we actually dive into the workbook, let's do a really super quick overview of what we've just went through in the actual UDO. You know, it's all about you, all about UDO. To give the listeners an actual quick overview of what we're actually fixing to start going into a deeper level of, okay? So where we're at with everything, guys, and like I said, this is just going to be a little bullet point, quick overview of how this all works and what we're going to have to be working on as individuals, okay? Now, we have to understand the concept of the universal laws, okay? We've been going over those, and we'll be going over them even more, but really applying those in our lives and working in harmony with that, okay? Especially like the law of autonomy, the law of self-responsibility, self-discipline, Universal Divine Oneness. We do have the book on the website, NDE.world. Go to the bookstore, and it's like, I think, 300 plus universal laws, but it covers all of those laws, okay? The next thing we have to understand is it's mind, okay, that everything is mind, okay? That's what we call the all. You know, once you understand that everything is mind, then you can understand, well, it has to start within the mind to be able to, you know, get on this path to enlightenment, okay? Another thing is your diet, okay? This includes the food that you eat. This includes your mental diet, you know? What do you watch? What do you put in, you know, into your mind? What are you listening to? What are you taking into the temple throughout the day, you know, and the food itself? Are you practicing mindfulness and awareness and things like that of the type of foods that you're eating, you know? We went over different foods and frequencies, the energies that they have, you know, and we'll be going over that even deeper. And remember how we went over the different, like the vibrations and the frequencies and all. So, but the question is what are we really feeding ourselves? What are we feeding off of? What are we feeding our bodies? What are we feeding our minds in all areas? So be mindful of that. You know, we use the acronym GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So be careful with what goes in, okay? So that way you can start putting this all into practice. Now, also the importance of meditation and mindfulness, all right? We went over a couple of basic examples of meditations and how to clear the mind and grounding, okay? Also, affirmations, we're going to really get, we've got whole sections on affirmations in the actual workbook that we're going to be going over, guys. I'm really looking forward to that. That when you're in these meditative states, you know, you can use these affirmations, you can reflect on your spiritual goals, you can connect with the divine, you know, just whatever you need to do to really get grounded in that regard, you know. And also, remember the spiritual values and virtues, you know. Virtues you'll have to start practicing and putting into practice, like love, compassion, humility, humbleness, mindfulness, gratitude, you know, breath work, grounding, and, you know, journaling. There's all types of different things you can do to really start working on this, you know. Your main objective is, of course, to reconnect with the divine.
Realize that your own divinity.
Right, absolutely. That is the objective, correct. And when you meditate and go into these meditative states, you know, look at your relationship to the divine. How is your life in harmony with the universal laws? You know, also harmony with nature. You know, you want to do everything you can as far as really getting back in touch with nature. That always is key. It's a major key. You know, you have to put things into practice. You have to develop a daily spiritual routine, okay? We've given some examples of that and different areas that we can actually, you know, put these into practice as well. Also, I really appreciate it where we went over the part to respect, you know, all for the divinity that is in all people. You know, have that gratitude, practice forgiveness, and recognize the divine essence in everything.
Yes, most
that
definitely.
was, to me, was like
the
major,
oneness,
absolutely.
realizing the divinity within everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. We talked about setting boundaries, okay? Self-care, including exercise, diet, nature walks, hobbies, lots of rest. All of these things we went over in all these previous episodes, so you can really get into it if you want to go over the overviews. But it's really a lifelong lifestyle, should I say. It's not something you're going to take, learn, and you're good to go. It's going to be something you're going to have
It's ongoing, yes.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. It will take a commitment to spiritual growth. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually take and really start breaking this stuff down and going deep into it, like the next level. Now that we've actually went over the kind of the overview of what it all entails. So
Oh yes.
let's jump into the actual overview, of the workbook. All right. Let's look at the word love.
Ooh, the most misused and abused word.
Maybe
of all.
misunderstood, lack of words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of how big that word is and all of the areas it covers. So, and there's so many different types. But let's get into it. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, here we go. The word love, quote unquote, has come to mean two very different things. Okay? In fact, the meanings are essentially opposite of each other. A lot of people don't even know that. Mm-hmm. Most people don't ever think of it and continue to use the exact same word, which is love, for both things. Let's break this down. The first kind of love could be called, quote unquote, pure love. Pure love is an outflowing, giving, caring kind of love. It could also be called unselfish love, quote unquote. Pure love is the kind of love that is related to things like love thy neighbor, caring love for your family and friends, charity, helping disaster victims, etc. It's the kind of love that the selfish side of yourself gets nothing out of, but that the quote unquote good side of yourself gets a warm feeling from. Miss Daphne?
Okay, so as soon as you start reading this paragraph, immediately my mind is going to the Conversations book where Neil repeatedly and just over and over that divine essence talks about the divine essence as being pure love. And that is what so many of our NDEers experience when they transition over to that other side and then come back. They know what that pure, true connectedness is with divine source.
Well said, well said. And that's one of the things I love about the NDE stories is that they do experience that true, pure love.
Exactly.
It is a common thread through all stories,
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Wow. So yeah, keep that in mind. So we have this, that's one type of love. It's that self-sacrificing love. It's a pure love.
Which there is a universal law of love.
Why don't you, if you don't mind, go ahead and share that real quick, and then we'll go ahead and move on from there. And just a little quick something I want to throw in real quick before you read the law there is, we've all heard the expression that God is love.
Yes.
However, what about love is God?
Right.
Something to think about.
It sure is. But
Go
you
ahead and read
think it
the
kept some.
go ahead and read the laws if you don't mind.
Okay, so the universal law of love embodies the principle that love is a fundamental force that connects all beings and transcends boundaries, cultures, and differences. It underscores the power of love to transform individuals, relationships, and societies, fostering compassion, understanding, and harmony. And when we really start to apply the law of love into our lives, individuals can foster, like I said, deeper connections, promote understanding, and create a more compassionate and harmonious world. Love serves as a guiding principle that transcends all barriers and unites humanity in a shared experience of connection and belonging. And that's something we all want. We want to feel like we belong.
Yeah.
So when we can start implementing the law of love and really pure love, not just the selfish kind of love, that's when, those barriers are going to start breaking down and humanity as a whole uniting.
Yeah, and that description you just read sounds a lot more like this first love we just read.
Exactly.
Okie dokie. Well, that's one kind of love. But what about this other love that it mentions here? Let's go ahead and read this. It says that the next kind of love that is commonly referred to as love is actually nothing like quote-unquote pure love. It is really just a feeling of pleasure that comes from quote-unquote getting something that you want or like, whether physically or emotionally. It doesn't matter if it comes from someone else somehow giving you something that you like, or if it comes from self-indulgence. It's all self-gratifying. Remember the ego.
Mm-hmm.
So let's call that kind of love, quote-unquote, selfish love. Now, here are just a few quotes that are examples of this. I love ice cream. I love football. I love presents. I love chocolate. I love the islands. I love BMWs. I love beer, etc. Hey, that's the examples. I'm reading it.
I know. I get it.
Yeah. You can see the difference in the two.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Such selfish love crosses over into our relationships also. Quote unquote, I love Sam, or quote unquote, I love Marcia, for instance, can actually mean that you just love the attention, the energy and pleasure that they give you. Relationships can involve a mixture of selfish love and pure love, but many start with and are actually based on selfish love primarily or totally. And many relationships break up because of that. When a relationship is based on the self-gratifying pleasure that you get from your partner, it results in a sort of quote-unquote addiction to one degree or another. You can then end up with addictive behavior, possessiveness, jealousy, rejection, and all the other selfishly spawned causes of pain and turmoil that come with such addictions.
It really just reminds me of how conditional our love in our relationships is, because I love you, but if you do this, there's going to be consequences. So that is not a true, pure form of love. That is the egoic, selfish, conditional love, what we are conditioned with from the beginning of our life.
That's right. All of us. Yeah. From the beginning. I wouldn't say all of us, but, for the majority, especially here over in the United States, for sure. I can't speak for that for the most part. It's the way they run things here.
Yeah.
It's a very prideful country, So, so now that we have these two different types of love, okay, one would be the
pure love.
The pure love. In fact, let me read this real quick. It says that the pure love, being the opposite of selfish, creates no addiction. See, that's the key right there.
Right.
It craves nothing for itself. It thus heals rather than hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It cares rather than, quote unquote, blocks out and ignores. It can improve your life, the lives of those around you, and ultimately the whole world. Totally pure love is not contaminated at all with selfishness or selfish love. This is important because, like any contaminant, any selfishness can taint and ruin everything. It's like putting drops of poison in an entire jug of pure water. It contaminates the whole jug.
Exactly. And this pure, unconditional love is what, we've said it before, what so many of our near-death experiencers have had a taste of, that pure, unconditional love. And it transforms their lives. And they're coming back sharing these beautiful experiences to help us in our awareness, to raise our consciousness about pure love, about what divine source is, without being wrathful and judgmental and condemning.
Egoic.
that's the egoic God.
Yeah.
But
Which is you're functioning through the dark side, the devil within. That's
devil within, yeah.
You're Satan, for lack of words. The ego. It's all tied in.
The devil.
The devil.
Yeah, and we want to stay away from I like the example here that talks about, one drop of poison in a jug contaminates the whole jug.
That's right.
And that's kind of what we're experiencing here.
Yeah.
With conditional love.
And you can take that
Selfish love.
absolutely, to go with that thought, you can take that same concept and apply it to your diet. Like we mentioned earlier, what are you taking into the body as far as food? One little piece of poison is going to poison the whole system.
Right.
What are you looking at during the day or watching? What are you putting into your eyes? Well, one little piece of poison will poison the whole system. Mm-hmm. You see, what is your spiritual diet? So
right, and this, I like the way it brings it out as well, that pure love, it really is the opposite of selfish love, because it creates no addictive behaviors.
Right.
It actually craves nothing for itself. Therefore, it starts to heal everything rather than hurting things.
Very well said. All right, let's look at the next section here. Universal Divine Oneness to the rescue. We'll define it more later, but basically the quote-unquote rule part of the Universal Divine Oneness is to quote-unquote love unselfishly, to focus on and give pure love.
Yeah, that is love all, harm none.
Absolutely. Pure love encompasses all the spiritual virtues involved with simply being a good person. For example, caring, kindness, compassion, tolerance, sharing, giving, harmlessness, respecting the free will choices of others, etc., are results of loving unselfishly. Pure love is not unconditional love. You can be unselfishly loving and still, quote-unquote, put your foot down. In other words, one who applies universal divine oneness in life is reasonably kind, reasonably giving, but not unconditionally kind, unconditionally giving, etc.
Exactly.
Next section, the purpose of the Universal Divine Oneness Workbook. This workbook gives examples of the benefits of living by Universal Divine Oneness and how to apply it more in your life in many different circumstances. For instance, the techniques and methods included here can help you have more caring interactions with everyone every day. All people are essentially just one big family within the human race, and all people relate to universal divine oneness, especially those really seeking that, higher spiritual path, especially, It's a non-denominational universal concept that involves individual spirituality rather than religion. I also like here how it says that practicing universal divine oneness does not require anyone to change their religion, to leave their religion, or join another religion. You see that so much in today's world. But I love this. Stick whatever religion you want, but incorporate this into it. So that's the beauty of this, So moving right on along, a Benny for your thoughts. Benjamin Franklin once set out to write a book very much like this one. He had developed specific techniques for perfecting oneself through the development of virtues. It was to be called The Art of Virtue, but was never finished. More importantly, perhaps, Franklin also intended to create an organization and secret society based on that idea. He strongly believed that if even a few people committed their lives to developing the virtues of being a good person, then secretly recruited friends and family, over time, it would spread from one person to the next and eventually create a new and better society. Part of his plan was for the program to be universal, not to be limited to any one religion, and to avoid alienating any religion. The need for secrecy was primarily due to the threat of being charged with heresy in those days. That particular threat is gone in this day and age, and we can openly pursue such a wonderful non-denominational program. It is our hope and belief that this book and the creation of Universal Divine Oneness fulfills this goal and dream.
I guess what comes to my mind is the Masons and their pursuit to live a more life of virtue.
Yeah.
But they've been demonized and criticized by other religions.
Well,
because what they do is behind closed doors and between each other rather than openly, like trying to commit to making other disciples, like religions.
Well, the key, Daphne, in that last thing that we just read was they had to hide because of the what? Heresy.
Exactly. And
Well,
what is heresy? We went over that in a previous episode.
If we're talking about heresy, there has to be, you can't blame all religions for saying something about that. There's only one that the roots of heresy stem from.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The Catholic Church, the Mother Church.
Right.
Yeah. So if it wasn't in harmony with what they want, if it wasn't playing by their rules, they claimed it to be heresy. Well, here's something I've learned along the way, guys. If it has been claimed heresy, you want it. Trust me. You grab it and you take it and you feed off of it because there is something in that
they don't want you to know.
That church does not want you to. That's absolutely right.
Because it's about the evolution of the soul. That's your divinity within. That's your spiritual growth.
Yeah.
That they are stamping out and reflecting and going within. They don't want you to go within. They want you to go with them.
Yeah, it's part of the control.
Yeah, exactly. Selfish love.
Yeah.
Not pure love.
Yeah, which in its true sense is really not love. Because real love is the pure love, the unconditional. That's the pure love. That's the point at hand, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, moving on along. Okay, chapter 2, the Universal Divine Oneness and its significance. Like the meaning of love, okay, the Universal Divine Oneness can mean different things to different people. But before getting into intellectually defining Universal Divine Oneness with words alone, I will share with you a couple of stories that define it through example.
Okay, good deal. I like examples.
Long ago, I had a simple little experience during a meal that stayed with me as a vivid memory for the rest of my life. I was visiting a friend of mine who was a monk at the monastery he lived in. Time flew by. Soon, afternoon began its transformation to evening, and I was invited to stay for dinner. At this particular monastery, they always ate dinner together at a large table. There was the usual clatter and commotion, but something very unusual happened. As I was just about to reach for a pitcher of milk, someone got to it first. But rather than pouring themselves a glass, they poured me a glass and set the pitcher back down. I was a bit stunned. Now keep in mind, I was accustomed to having waiters serve me at restaurants or my mother at home or a host or hostess at a dinner party, okay? But this was different. This was just another person who was eating at the table. There was no one playing the role of waiter or hostess. After the food was brought out to the table, it was just a bunch of people sitting down to a bunch of food and partaking it in. In that situation, most people just, quote unquote, dig in and grab whatever they want for themselves and focus on their own eating. So when one of these strangers, who was also just having dinner, as I was, performed this simple, natural act of getting and pouring milk for me rather than for himself, it was an odd experience. But it was even more striking because my need for the milk wasn't expressed. My wanting milk was anticipated rather than asked for. It was so striking, in fact, that it seemed like ESP to me, or like the person was psychic. But he wasn't. He probably saw me looking at the picture and was just that sensitive, that caring about his guest, and acted on it. Or maybe he was a bit psychic. It doesn't matter. The point is, it was a little example of Universal Divine Oneness in action. While this example shows how living by Universal Divine Oneness can work in the little day-to-day aspects of daily life, it's far more than just, a basic have a nice day casual principle. It can also be so powerful as to change the world. Here's a short, wonderful old parable that does a pretty good job of giving an example of that. Miss Daphne, would you like to read the little parable?
Sure. There was a man who died and was being taken to heaven by angels. The angels said to him, "We are going to take you to heaven, but first we will show you hell." The angels then took him to a place where there was a great bowl, so great that it was as big as a lake. The bowl was filled with nutritious stew. All the way around the sides of this bowl were people, emaciated, starving, miserable people. These people had spoons to eat the stew with, and the spoons were long enough to reach the stew about 12 feet. The trouble was, while they could scoop up the stew into the spoon, they could not get it into their mouths because the spoons were too long. So, here were all these pathetic people suffering and moaning in agony, constantly trying to eat the food that was abundantly in front of them, all in vain. Next, the angels took the man to heaven. To his surprise, he saw the same scene. There it was, a giant lake-like bowl of the same stew, surrounded by people with 12-foot-long spoons, yet something was different here. All these people were smiling, happy, and healthy-looking. Why, what is the difference here that these people are happy and well-fed? The man said to the angels. They replied, "Have you not eyes to see?" The man looked more carefully and observed that one person would scoop up the stew and bring it to the mouth of another. Then someone else would scoop up stew and feed it to the other. The angel smiled and said, "Here the people feed each other. Here are the people that learned the way of love."
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay, the above story uses a strikingly allegorical fantasy to clearly illustrate a fundamental difference between a world of people who are looking out for themselves first and a world of people who make caring for others their first priority. That's what Universal Divine Oneness is all about. The story exemplifies living by UDO, Universal Divine Oneness, or not living by it, in a nutshell. But it's more than just a story. It truly represents the real difference that living by Universal Divine Oneness could make in our world. It shows us how unselfishly loving others is not only pure love, but pure, real spirituality. And even if you cannot change the world so profoundly, it still represents what kind of a spiritual world we can eventually live in if we live by Universal Divine Oneness and make ourselves deserving citizens of paradise.
Yeah, it really just reminds me of the highly evolved beings that's mentioned in the Conversations with God books, because, they give of each other. There's no disharmony in any of those realms where those beings live at. So
yeah, even stories like here, like of the Essenes.
Right.
They everything they did, they were community. They worked together as a community.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of a biblical account in Acts where it says that they were giving everything they had to each other when they first started out, and there was no need among them.
That's right.
Think about that. When you really help each other,
in,
there's no need.
They gave it to the ones who needed it the most. Yeah.
We've become a selfish world.
So much different than today's religions.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to go there. We'll leave that for a different episode. Now, Next section, a universal concept. One of the beauties of Universal Divine Oneness, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start saying UDO, because that is what it is. A little easier just to say UDO. That way we'll know, might save us a little bit of time there. But when I say UDO, it is that Universal Divine Oneness. So I will alternate between the two. So one of the beauties of UDO is its total universality. It goes beyond being just non-denominational and omni-denominational. As you will note in the earlier story, the issue of religious persecution or faith was irrelevant. Assuming that the people in that story were of various persuasions, it was their pure love or selfishness that ultimately made the difference in their circumstances. The division between the happy place and the miserable place wasn't between Christians with 12-foot spoons or Buddhists with 12-foot spoons or agnostics with 12-foot spoons, or even an issue of who had spoons or not. The thing that separated those people in the story, as it does in reality, was whether or not they had learned that living by having pure love was more important than variations in their belief systems. That's powerful.
They vary.
And that's what this is all about. The concept of universal divine oneness applies to all good, caring, giving people, regardless of religion, faith, or lack of faith. It is a universal principle that anyone, anywhere can use to improve their life, the lives of those around them, and ultimately the whole world. That's our objective. Isn't that incredible, exciting, amazing, and wonderful? UDO has a variety of typical definitions which essentially all have the same meaning. Sometimes it's interpreted as do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or love thy neighbor as thyself. We could add do no harm to others and think of others first to that list. Love all, harm none.
Exactly.
They are all good definitions in our opinion, and you see how they are all reflected in the above parable. But all those definitions and sayings are really byproducts of pure love, or unselfishly loving others. Pure love covers them all and is the mother of them all. So, to clarify the definition that we use in this book, when we say living by universal divine oneness, we mean living by unselfishly loving others. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is you're going to have to get the ego out of the way. Because the ego is what's feeding the self. So if you want to get into unselfish, okay, which means getting you out of the way, and that's what this whole book is about. Getting the ego under control, in balance where it needs to be, and not, out of whack.
Yeah, and the illusion of separateness.
Yeah.
We have to get past this, that we are all separate, because we're not. We are all one. We are all of the same divine source energy.
There's only one.
Everything is energy. Energy is life. Life just transforms.
There's only one.
Exactly. You are me and I am you. We are everything that we see and don't see.
There's only one. And it's kind of strange. It's just, it really is. Really, it's hard to comprehend that when you start really looking into that. And it takes a while for it to sink in. But when it clicks, it clicks. And that's what this is all about. Is really bringing that to fruition to help all of us get on that path to that oneness.
Yes.
Let's move on. While such UDO principles are included in the beliefs of many spiritual traditions, in the Christian-oriented parts of the world, universal divine oneness is commonly attributed to a quote from Jesus. Here is how it reads in the Bible from the Gospel of John, King James Version, chapter 13, and it quotes, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another." That quote seems to make it crystal clear that pure love, unselfishly loving others, is the ultimate commandment Christians are supposed to live by. But the concept itself, pure love or living by unselfishly loving others, is not exclusive to any religion. That's the point. And a lot of people, that's where they drop the ball and get it mixed up, that, hey, only our religion can love. Only our religion has the answer. Only our religion is the key.
Ours is the way,
is
the
the
only
way.
way, the only path.
You're putting love in a box. You can't do that, Like it says here, this universal divine oneness is for all, regardless of your religion,
Exactly.
Keep your religion. If that helps you grow, keep it. you know?
Right.
But you can also start incorporating all this in with it, you know? That's the point. Picking back up, it says that denominational labels and semantics aside, it is our opinion that those who indeed live by that beautiful universal divine oneness are behaving in a most spiritually responsible manner. I like that. The fact that they are also subsequently being a real Christian, as directly defined by Jesus, is interesting though. But in any case, following universal divine oneness means being a caring spiritual person, regardless of your label, your mask, religion, or your affiliation. In that sense, as we said earlier, universal divine oneness is strikingly and wonderfully universal.
Exactly. Love knows no bounds.
That's right.
You can't say this group isn't going to make it because they believe differently than you. This says to all are under that universal law of love.
Mm-hmm.
So we really have to stop putting labels on others. Yeah, because we are all connected.
Yeah, good point. Let's move on. It says that if you really think about it, okay, there are a few things that are so cross-cultural and universal. Perhaps the most universal is a smile. Music also can often cross cultures. But when it comes to cross-cultural spiritual or moral concepts, universal divine oneness has no rival. While people often disagree on religion and politics, most everyone can agree on the goodness and rightness of living by universal divine oneness, regardless of culture or religious belief. Thus, it's an ideal in which all kind-hearted people can join together towards the common goal of manifesting pure love and its virtues, which are, like we've mentioned, kindness, compassion, love, tolerance, peace, sharing, giving, etc., in tangible ways for the mutual betterment of themselves and all creation.
From the paragraph, while people often disagree on religion and politics, most everyone can agree on the goodness and rightness of living by the universal divine oneness, regardless of cultural or religious beliefs. That is one thing that I grew up, my daddy always said, don't talk about religion and politics because it divides, it causes friction, it causes turmoil, arguments. I mean, he said, just don't talk about those things.
It does. It's part of that separation. It does.
It really does. You know, my dad was a man of very few words with the family, but he was so wise. I mean,
most wise people are people of few words, very few words.
Looking back at this now and having been through the religious dogmas and the religious indoctrinations that I have, his words ring so true. Because when you talk religion, most people's walls go up because they have their own belief system.
That's right.
It's not about converting and making somebody believe the way you do. Let everybody be who they are and believe what they believe, no matter what it is.
And incorporate this into your lifestyle.
Because we are all one. We all are under the universal divine laws.
That's right. You can't get around it.
Right. So just live and let live and be happy that we're all experiencing life.
Yep, absolutely. Alrighty, let's move on and go ahead and cover this last section for today's episode. It says, why universal divine oneness is the big key to solving all of life's problems.
Ooh.
The great need for universal divine oneness, or UDO, is as simple as the rule itself. Just take that parable about the people with the 12-foot spoons and apply it in present-day, real-world situations. It's really that simple. People are suffering all over the world. Even those who seem to be happy often actually have a painful, empty pit inside them that they attempt to ignore by constantly chasing after diversions and fun. Alcohol and drugs are used to try and cope with it sometimes too, even in the best of families and amongst the wealthy who have everything they want, materially that is.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, there are the various wars and oppressions. So what's the problem? Why can't people be happy? and live in peace and cooperation. If you objectively look around at the world and at people's lives, you can trace all problems to one thing: selfishness. That's right. Just that one thing. If you thought greed or hate were the big problems, you're right. But think further. Greed is just one aspect of selfishness, one branch of that tree. So is hate, lust, theft, starting wars, killing, jealousy, envy, etc., etc. And all of those branches of selfishness have sub-branches too. For instance, the reason for some people losing their jobs or things like the destruction of a rainforest or overfishing to extinction is quote-unquote greed. But again, greed is just a branch of that one thing, selfishness. You name the problem, its real source is selfishness. Moving on along. Unlike the common phrase, quote, fight fire with fire, unquote, you usually get better results fighting fire with water.
Very true.
So what better to fight selfishness with than its opposite, unselfishness? Enter Universal Divine Oneness, the answer and the cure to all of life's problems. Using a Christ/Antichrist analogy, quote unquote, selfishness is like, quote, the Antichrist principle, and the Universal Divine Oneness is like the Christ principle. Once that is clearly understood, the only trick is implementing it into your life. Right there, that's the key. And helping others do the same. Which brings us to the next prerequisite. Understanding the source of selfishness.
Ooh, here we go.
Selfishness is a result of separation. It's an outgrowth and outcome of being separate. Separate from what? Everyone and everything else. Separate from others, separate from nature, the universe, God, etc. If you totally feel and believe that you are a separate being from everyone else and everything else in the universe, it's naturally, quote unquote, you against the world. Me first. Look out for number one. It all makes total sense from that separate perspective. But the truth is that we are all one creation, scientifically speaking and spiritually speaking.
I love. Speaking of love, I really enjoy this, the way that this is bringing it out. That selfishness stems from separation, the illusion of separateness. Yeah, because we're not separate. We are all one. When we can really take this in and meditate on this and then let it start to overflow, that's when we're going to see change in the world.
I like that. Yes. Well, like it says here, it says, looking at it scientifically without a religious or spiritual viewpoint, scientists know without a doubt that we are all made up of the same essential stuff. And the universe is one thing, one energy forming unimaginable numbers of parts of creation. Even if you take the stance that humans just, quote unquote, developed self-awareness through evolution, that self-awareness is still what is behind humans seeing themselves as separate and getting out of harmony with everything else in the universe and nature. With that self-consciousness, quote unquote, you have the separate self contemplating its, quote, me against the world or against the universe, end quote, scenario. Theologically, you can consider it like the story of Adam and Eve or fallen angels, whether you wish to interpret that allegorically or factually. Rebelling against the one God caused a separation or cutoff from the one God, and again, suddenly there was the separate self contemplating its me against the world or against the universe or God scenario. So any way you look at it, the result is the same. The, quote, I, me, mine, end quote, thinking and behaving begins. And with that, greed, jealousy, fear, intolerance, hate, etc., etc., and all the problems that it creates. But we all have both a selfish side self that contributes to those problems and a quote-unquote soul or spirit or good side as well. I like how that brought that out. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't think about that, but we have both the light and dark in us all. Mm-hmm. Other than humans who let their selfish side control them, which is most humans, everything else in the universe functions as one harmonious system. Disjointed, separate thinking and behavior interferes with that harmony and creates disruptive ripples in the pond that can cause pain and suffering. And when those ripples we create hit the edge of the pond, they bounce back in even more complex patterns. Again, selfishness and its endless cycle of desire and fear causes all the problems in our personal lives, as well as the world. It's easy to see for those who don't deliberately make themselves blind because of their selfishness and fear. Once you have identified this problem, okay, you can find a solution. In this case, since the real problem behind everything is selfishness and separation from the universe, or what we call God or Source, the solution is unselfishness, transcending the illusion of separation and returning to oneness and harmony with the universe or God. Anything that can help that process, as long as it's harmless, remember, love all, harm none, is a good thing as far as we're concerned. The Universal Divine Oneness and its offspring virtues are thus a big key and perfect way to achieve the above goal. And even if living by UDO didn't achieve that lofty goal, it's still a win-win situation because you become a better person overall. You feel better and you help others as well. It just makes overall common sense. Ironically, however, while Universal Divine Oneness is intellectually well known by almost everyone, it seems to be stuck in some mental file cabinet within the dusty archives of our brains. It's amazing when you think about it. The Universal Divine Oneness is probably the most vital, positive, constructive principle in the world, in both a spiritual and practical sense. And it's always been just sitting there right before us, waiting for us to notice it, take it, and use it. There in the recesses of our mind is the incredible, powerful, yet simple, universal, common sense means of developing true spirituality, improving our lives and the lives of others. It's so simple, so basic, so truly profound in a real sense, yet it's often not even thought of by most of us as we search for profound spiritual knowledge, truths, and beliefs. And even if it is thought of, it's often not thought of as being as significant as it really is. Or it's just misunderstood, ignored, or given up on. But that is all changing. The Universal Divine Oneness seems to have been lying dormant within the hearts and minds of many good people, like some kind of spiritual time capsule waiting to be opened. Benjamin Franklin said, "You will observe with concern how long a useful truth may be known and exist before it is generally received and practiced on." Well, the useful truth of Universal Divine Oneness has been around a very long time, since the beginning. Yet, it seems that only now is it really beginning to be generally received and practiced on by many people. Mm-hmm. Its time has finally come. People everywhere are responding and experiencing an awakening of Universal Divine Oneness within themselves. And as they each start living by Universal Divine Oneness, its principles and universal laws, and discussing its simple beauty with acquaintances, friends and family and neighbors, some of them will respond to it as well. In this time of so much change and turmoil in the world, the common sense of Universal Divine Oneness, aka UDO, is creating a common spirituality and spreading on a grassroots level. And as Franklin seemed to grasp, it is a movement that will eventually spread amongst those of like mind throughout the world. The time you spend on developing your own unselfish love and on spreading it to others is invaluable. Hence, a nice thought from Albert Schweitzer. And we end with this quote. You must give some time to your fellow men. Even if it's a little thing, do something for others. Something for which you get no pay, but the privilege of doing it. End quote. Miss Daphne.
Yeah, you know, that was really a mouthful. But one thing that really just stuck out to me was this. Other than humans who let their selfish side control them, which is most humans, everything else in the universe
In harmony.
are in harmony.
Uh-huh.
Everything else in the universe is in harmony, but the humans.
But humans, I think
The
we've
dominant
covered that.
of the earth plane that we live on,
humans.
humans are out of whack, out of harmony with everything else.
Out of all. That's right. That's right. Yeah. This isn't the first time we've heard that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we can get back into the harmony of the universal oneness, and like it brought out in these pages, you know, this is not something new. This is not a new concept. This is something that has been and is coming back into the forefront because it is to raise the consciousness of the masses, to help us to realize our divinity, to help us to dissolve the illusion of separateness.
That's right. I like how you said that, and like it's brought out, it is already in there. It's in all of us.
Yes.
It's just like I said, like the illustrations. It's in kind of in somebody's dusty archives in their little mental file box somewhere, but it's there.
Right, exactly.
This is not something, and I like it regardless of your religion. It's a spirituality of bringing people together. It's not saying, hey, either this religion or you die, or this religion or you're going to be cursed for eternity, or this religion or you're going to be destroyed, or no, who cares about your religion? That works for you, fine. This is not about religion. It's about reality in the universal oneness that's within us all.
Like the spoons example, what are we doing to help each other in today's times? I mean, what are we doing to help each other, really?
Yeah.
Are we doing anything to help each other?
In the end, ultimately, that would be a question. Well, what did you do? How much love did you give?
Spread the love.
How much
People
did you
spread the
help
love.
others? How much did you,
Right.
Something to think about. Yeah. So this is some really good stuff. I like this last, well, actually, there's so many points, but I'll go ahead and, because of our time constraints here, I like this one right here. It says that, and I'll leave with this, it says that the Universal Divine Oneness is probably the most vital, positive, constructive principle in the world, in both a spiritual and a practical sense. And like we mentioned earlier, it's always been there, just sitting there waiting for us to notice and take control and put it to use.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. It really just makes me think about our NDEers and these people when they had those that had the life review, their points, their selfish acts throughout their life were not really looked upon. It was their interactions with others, that ripple effect. What kind of love did they share with others?
All life.
All life. Yes, exactly. So it's not, I did this and I got an award for that, or
That's right.
how many credits I got in college, or
all these achievements, accomplishments
that we can
nothing.
do mean nothing in the big picture.
That's right.
It's about love.
Yeah.
Spreading that love and sharing that love with others.
Was your life centered around self-love?
Selfish love. Yeah.
Or was it around serving and loving others?
Pure love.
There you go. Only you can answer that, guys. Only you can answer that. So,
Right.
Well, very good. Very good. Miss Daphne, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and going over this information and sharing your information and knowledge with us. Me as well. I look forward to the next episode. We'll be picking up with the Chapter 3 on the actual workbook itself.
We're continuing on with our Universal Divine Oneness series and applying those principles that we've learned. So I'm really enjoying doing this and seeing the growth of this. That tells me that it's real, that it is a message that needs to really be heard and is spreading. So I'm enjoying it.
Yes, me too. Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Again, thank you so much, Daphne. Thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in, and stick with us. This is going to be some really mind-blowing stuff, and it will be life-changing. We ask that you just start putting everything into practice. Start with the baby steps, but we're going to, we'll walk you along, we'll coach you along, and we'll do all this together. We're here for you. That's what this is all about. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good.
Like the example of the 12-foot spoons, the heaven and the hell.
We have to feed each other.
Exactly, yes.
Nice analogy. Don't forget to go to the website, NDE.world, for more information on who we are and what we do and all that cool stuff, guys. We'll see you out there again. That is
NDE.world.
We'll love you all so much. Thank you for tuning in. May peace be with you all. Until next time.
Y'all let your light shine.
Hello, you beautiful souls. Don't forget to visit the website, NDE.world. That is
NDE.world.